I am Ferdinand Marcos, and I am the President of the Republic of the Philippines. I stand today on behalf of 110 million Filipinos.
Everyone, hello people and hello universe. It's me again guys. Ayan, shoutout sa inyo mga Beshwa. Mayroon po tayong upload videos update sapagkat ito guys mahalaga ay ang Pilipinas ang host ng Asia Pacific to Accelerate Disaster Risk Reduction, no? Sabi po dito, basahin nga natin. Sabi po dito mga kababayan, President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. keynotes the opening ceremony of the Asia Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction, 2024 at the Philippines International Convention Center, which is ang PICC in Pasay City, and on October 15, 2024. Tayo po ang host ngayon, mga kababayan, hosted by the government of the Philippines, in partnership with the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. Sabi dito guys tuloy natin, medyo tabingi ang aking video. Tuloy, sabi po dito guys ulitin natin, hosted by the government of the Philippines in partnership with the United Nations Officer for Disaster Risk Reduction. Beginning 14 October to 18. Ilang araw ba yan mga besh? October 2024, the Pbbm CDRR served as the main platform in Asia and the Pacific in monitoring, reviewing, and enhancing cooperation for the implementation of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction to 15 to 2030, the Global Blueprint for the preventing and reducing new and existing disaster risk in the world most disaster-prone region. Ayan, Tuloy, the conference brings together governments, intergovernment, international, national, and civil society organization, the private sector, science, academia, and stakeholder group to accelerate progress in reducing disaster risk. It takes place under the work theme Search to 2030, Enhancing Ambition in Asia Pacific to Accelerate Disaster Risk Reduction, which aims to provide an important opportunity to review risk reduction efforts, share innovative solution, and makes actionable commitments to accelerate disaster risk reduction by 2030. Shout out sa mga Marcos loyalists and supporters, mga Pilipino sa buong daigdig, mga kababayan. Ayan, panoorin po natin ang keynote speech ng ating mahal na Pangulo. But before that, don't forget to like, hit the button bell, and para may lagi kayo update sa aking mga next upload video mga best. Today is today, October 15 today guys, 2024, ginanap dyan sa PICC. Okay? Panoorin natin ito mga beswa, kasama po ang buong gabinete, of course, ang ating mahal na Pangulong Marcos Jr. Talaga naman, Ito si Pangulong Marcos Jr. Nakakaano guys, nakakahamangha. Bakit? Laging nag-i-speech sa Banco Digo. Ano ba yan? Napakatalino talaga, si Digong panay, yun pag nagbabasa, panay basa ng basa. Lalo na yung anak, iisa lang yung sagot. Ulit-ulitin pang basahin. But anyway guys, panoorin natin ito. Okay?
Panahon na magbabago at ayos ang mga dapat.
Philippine National Anthem to be led by the Philippine Madrigal Singers.
Nagiginig, lupa ng araw ng may hatid pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Aming ligaya na pag may mga api, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
We may now be across the Asia Pacific and beyond, and we are delighted by your participation. We look forward to a rich exchange of experiences, wisdom, and actionable commitments in the coming days as we work together to accelerate disaster risk reduction in the world's most disaster-prone region. This year's conference can surge to 2030. To have a better understanding, kindly direct your attention on screen for a short audio-visual presentation on the APMC DRR.
Not only to secure business continuity, but to foster innovations and enhance resilience across supply chains. Third, increase international financing, with better access for the countries that need it most. Tools like climate bonds can unlock funds for resilience and help blend public and private funding, sharing responsibility and creating predictable investment environments. Fourth, close data gap, invest in resilience, and invest now. We can all contribute to reducing disaster risk. Our diverse experiences, skills, and knowledge can be harnessed to make communities more resilient. When gender equality is prioritized, women, girls, and people of diverse genders are prepared for disasters, and everyone benefits from indispensable. Our policies, decisions, and financing must reflect this fact. We all have a role to play. What will yours be? Let's protect our future together. Leave no one behind.
Community resources and technology empower communities to prevent risks, prepare, respond fast, and build back better. Risk data must be localized, connecting communities and all levels of governance. Scientific insights must be paired with lived experiences to truly inform action. Women, youth, indigenous and marginalized groups fill in the full risk picture.
His Excellency Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr., President of the Republic of the Philippines. His Excellency Kamal Kishore, Special Representative of the UN Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction and the head of the UNDRR. Honorable Gilberto Teodoro Jr., Secretary of the Philippines Department of Defense and Chair of the Office of Civil Defense. Good morning. The Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction is the guideline and the guiding light for our work here in the Asia Pacific. To our distinguished guests from the Asia Pacific and beyond, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the Republic of the Philippines, it is my great honor and privilege to welcome you all to the 2024 Asia Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction. The APMC DRR of 2024 is our moment as a region to demonstrate the triumph of promise over peril. When the UNDRR first invited the Philippines to host this conference as early as September 2022, we reflected on this recognition of our own disaster history, our resilience as a people, and the new leadership of our President, given his vision and deep knowledge of climate and disaster resilience and sustainability. We hoped then, as we do now, that our country's journey through prevention, recovery, and resilience may be shaped throughout and beyond our region, whilst we also learn from our neighbors' knowledge and experiences themselves. Given recent disasters, and as we approach 2030, it is now crucial to refine our approaches and accelerate integrated action and transformative action as well. We already know that early warning is key and early action is a must. Using traditional knowledge, sound science, and data in investing in risk-informed prevention and recovery planning will also ensure that no one is left behind. As we race towards resilience of our societies, economies, and environments, many risks are indeed preventable and can be mitigated with the right knowledge, the right resources, and decisions made at the right time. The APMC DRR of 2024 is our region's right time. The commitments we make to science, innovation, and investments can fundamentally transform our risk landscapes, and will determine the future of our communities. Within these next few days, therefore, let us seize this critical chance to triumph over perils and commit ourselves to deliver on the promise of the Asia-Pacific and our own nation's future. Again, welcome, thank you, and mabuhay.
His Excellency President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., Secretary Loizaga, His Excellency Kamal Kishore, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. We are honored to co-host the 2024 Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction. As an archipelago at the heart of the Pacific Ring of Fire and the Typhoon Belt, the Philippines is highly susceptible to natural hazards, including tropical cyclones, floods, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions. The country's vulnerability, inherent in its geographic location and exacerbated by a rapidly changing climate, poses significant challenges not only for the Philippines but for the region. However, through collective action, we shall only get stronger and demand greater resilience from our communities. In this context, we are grateful to be in the company of our local, regional, and global partners. Thus far, the Philippine government, under the leadership of President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., has strengthened its horizontal and vertical coordination mechanisms. We have sought to empower our local government units, who are, in many ways, in a better position to address the needs of their communities. We have also enhanced cooperation among different government agencies, leveraging their respective functional expertise in disaster mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. Moving forward, we will build on our collaboration with civil society and the private sector to foster a multi-sectoral and collaborative approach to disaster risk reduction. This mirrors the Philippines' intent behind hosting this conference. We hope to provide an avenue where governments in the region, international organizations, the private sector, civil society, and other key stakeholders can convene, share best practices, and coordinate a robust and sustained regional response to the challenges we are facing, both as individual nations and as a collective whole. Maraming salamat po, mabuhay, and a pleasant good morning to each and every one of you.
Your Excellency President Marcos Jr., co-chairs of the conference, Secretary Teodoro Jr. and Secretary Loizaga, representatives of the Government of the Philippines, leaders of the delegations from Asia Pacific, Excellencies, esteemed delegates, ladies and gentlemen, mabuhay. On behalf of the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, it is a great honor for me to welcome you all to the opening of the Asia Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction. I would like to start by extending my sincere gratitude to our host, the people and the government of the Philippines, under the leadership of His Excellency President Marcos Jr. This gathering would not have been possible without your kindness, your generosity, and your support. Thank you very much. We're fortunate to have the Philippines as the host country because while it is no stranger to the dangers of disasters, it is also a leader in pioneering inclusive approaches to disaster risk reduction that put people and communities at the center. Even in organizing this conference, the Philippines adopted an all-of-government and a whole-of-society approach, with more than 40 government offices involved, and in addition, a robust participation from local governments, civil society, the scientific community, and the private sector. I would also like to express my appreciation to the national delegations and their leaders who have traveled here, and to the representatives of the various non-governmental organizations, partner organizations, private sector entities who are participating or who have helped in organizing this conference. I'm grateful for all your contributions. Thank you for being here. This conference is the premier regional gathering for promoting cooperation around disaster risk reduction, assessing progress, exchanging good practices and knowledge, and exploring new ways of accelerating the implementation of the Sendai framework. What we discuss here is of relevance not only to the people of Asia Pacific, but to the entire world. That is, because while Asia Pacific is the most disaster-prone region in the world, it is also the region that has pioneered many of the concepts of disaster risk management that has been followed by the world in all the other parts of the world. For example, from Japan's principle of Build Back Better to the Philippines' innovations in building local resilience, from Indonesia's promotion of sustainable resilience to India's comprehensive approach to financing disaster risk reduction, from Bangladesh's cyclone preparedness program to the Pacific Islands' model of integrating climate action and disaster risk reduction. There are simply too many examples to count. And what makes the Asia-Pacific region so important is that it is doing things not just for the region itself, but for the world. Right now, the world and Asia-Pacific are at a crossroad. The future looks uncertain. Number, geography, intensity of disasters is changing. We are faced with unprecedented challenges. As we learned from last year's midterm review of the Sendai framework, disaster risks are increasing all across the world. They are becoming more complex. At the same time, we are lagging behind in meeting the targets of the Sendai framework. Disasters are now affecting record numbers of people and threatening their lives and livelihoods. Left unchecked, these disaster risks threaten to derail the development aspirations of the Asia-Pacific region and push back progress that has taken decades to achieve. After all, this is the region that went from being primarily an agrarian, rural, low-income region in the 1960s to a global economic powerhouse. In that time, per capita GDP almost tripled globally, but in Asia Pacific, it saw a nearly 15-fold increase. That said, progress has been uneven, with several countries in the region still in the lowest development tiers, and others, such as small island developing states, facing existential threats from climate change. Indeed, we must never forget the Pacific in Asia Pacific. To address the mounting risks and to ensure continued prosperity, it is critical that two actions be taken. First, investing in disaster prevention must be a priority for all countries in the region. This means dedicated funding for disaster risk reduction in national budgets and dedicating a larger proportion of official development assistance to prevention and not simply response. This is central to saving lives and protecting vital infrastructure and assets. We know from experience that the cost of prevention is almost always less than the cost of recovery. Second, countries must implement local and inclusive approaches to disaster risk reduction. In line with the principle, nothing about us without us, governments must seek out and involve local communities when designing and implementing risk reduction measures. This applies to everything, from closing the last mile of early warning systems to scaling up nature-based solutions for disaster risk reduction. And in every community, efforts should be made to engage the most at-risk groups, such as persons with disabilities, women, children, older persons, indigenous groups, and marginalized communities. This is essential so that we ensure that we leave no one behind. These two actions encompass much of what we will discuss at this conference and where we need more international cooperation to break barriers and make progress. I would expect nothing less of the region that is renowned for its cooperation, innovation, and resourcefulness. As we near the 20th anniversary of the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, let us rekindle the spirit of cooperation and solidarity that we saw in the aftermath of that deadly disaster. But this time, let us cooperate for the future to prevent risks from becoming disasters. To that end, the United Nations system, with our country teams and regional partners, stand ready to support all of you in your efforts. I would once again like to thank the Philippines for hosting this conference and thank all the partners who helped put it together. We really look forward to working with you. Thank you.
May we invite to the front of the stage Her Excellency Ambassador of Australia to the Philippines, Hei Kyung-yu, and the President, His Excellency Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., for the turnover. Ambassador Yu is handing over the Australian message stick to the President in the spirit of this indigenous Australian tradition and with the permission of Nunukul Yugera, who have kindly prepared this message stick. The Australian government respectfully asks the President of the Republic of the Philippines to be the caretaker and messenger of this stick. To pass the message from Australia to the Philippines, allow me to read the message on the stick. Let's continue to work together and with our communities to reduce the impact of future disasters in the Asia-Pacific region, and let's take care of our country and the natural environment and work together towards the protection of all people, both here and now, and for the future generations to come. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much to our Department of Environment and Natural Resources Secretary, Secretary Maria Antonia Yulo Loizaga, the National Defense Secretary Gilberto Chodoro, and other Cabinet Secretaries who are here today, the Assistant Secretary General and Special Representative to the United Nations Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction, His Excellency Kamal Kishore, His Excellency Uduj Sengepao Sr., Palau Vice President and Minister of Justice, His Excellency Senbayan Amarsaikan, Deputy Prime Minister of Mongolia, the Honorable Datu Seri Dr. Ahmad Zahid Hamidi, the Deputy Prime Minister of Malaysia and Rural and Regional Development Minister, Ministers and delegates of the Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction, Ambassador Hei Kyung-yu and other members of the Diplomatic Corps, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning to you all and a very warm welcome to the Philippines. We are a nation that is an archipelagic one consisting of over 7,600 islands. And we take pride in our beaches, in our world-class diving sites, our breathtaking landscape. And all this draw visitors from all over the globe. But while nature has gifted us with natural wonders, it also reminds us of its formidable power over and over again. Unfortunately, our beautiful country is located along the Pacific Typhoon Belt, in the midst of the Pacific Ring of Fire. We are visited by more than 20 tropical cyclones and experience around 500 magnitude 4.0 and above earthquakes in 1 year. We also have around 24 active volcanoes. These are compounded by the increasing frequencies of hazards brought about by climate change, which makes the Philippines at risk and in our landscape making our landscape even more complex, our people even more vulnerable. Much has been said about the resilience of Filipino spirit, but let us remember that strength was forged out of adversity, over centuries of facing storms and earthquakes, adapting and rising once again with a renewed vision and purpose. Just recently, the southwest monsoon, or habagat, enhanced by Typhoon Gaimi, locally known as Karina, inflicted more than $82 million in agricultural damage. That figure only scratches the surface. The true measure of our losses lies in the human cost, the homes that have been destroyed and have to be rebuilt, the livelihoods that have been lost that may never come back, and the lives irrevocably changed. Resilience and sustainability must underpin the national agenda of our economy. This recognizes that all our efforts in economic planning are fragile in the face of calamities and disasters. For us, the stakes are existential, the consequences generational, and the policy environment increasingly complex. However, this narrative is not unique to the Philippines. Across the Asia-Pacific region, nations like ours grapple with similar trials. We share a common struggle, navigating the balance between continued economic growth and dealing with the ever-present threat of disasters. The Asia-Pacific region also stands as a testament to the unwavering spirit of its people. From the tsunami in the Indian Ocean to Typhoon Haiyan in the Pacific Ocean, from the earthquakes in Nepal to floods in South Asia, our nations have conquered monumental challenges. Still, we remain as the world's engine of growth, steering the global economic recovery in the wake of the pandemic. We must strive to create a future where the need for recovery becomes less frequent, as we lay the foundations for a safer, more adaptive, inclusive, and disaster-resilient region. So as we convene for the 2024 Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction, we find ourselves at a critical juncture. With the theme Surge to 2030, Enhancing Ambition in Asia-Pacific to Accelerate Disaster Risk Reduction, we are now called to lead the global effort to reduce disaster and climate risks, protect our people, and build sustainable economies. The Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030 gave the international community profound guidance in our disaster risk reduction efforts. Our path now is to redouble and to synergize our efforts to accelerate its implementation. It also remains crucial to align our goals under this framework with the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and the Paris Agreement. We must harmonize our approaches and pursue meaningful actions under these mandates to secure a sustainable and climate-resilient future. The surge to 2030 involves key steps. We must significantly increase our investments and develop financing mechanisms in disaster risk reduction. Sustained and predictable data and financing would help address disaster risk better. This entails ensuring that developing countries, particularly the least developed countries, landlocked countries, and small island developing states are provided greater access to these resources to advance their policies and build disaster resilience. For our part, the Philippines, as a climate champion, humbly accepts the role as steward of the board of the fund for responding to loss and damage. This reinforces our commitment to improving the board's operations and to contribute to the success of its institutional architecture. We are hopeful for a fund that will benefit climate-vulnerable countries, many of whom are in our region. Equally importantly, we enforce the guidelines on the issuance of green and blue bonds. Our green bond market has been recognized by the Asian Development Bank for its potential to expand even further. Our country's most promising sectors for growth comprise renewable energy, green buildings, sustainable agriculture, and water management. Given our archipelagic nature and the looming threat of climate change, investing in the blue bond market is also essential to ensuring the responsible stewardship of our natural wealth, the safeguarding of our coastal communities, and the sustainable growth of industries like fisheries and tourism. Second, we must embrace inclusion. Disasters disproportionately impact people, and they exacerbate existing inequalities. Building stronger societies requires addressing the needs of the most vulnerable, the very young, the very old, the sick, the indigenous peoples, marginalized communities. We must ensure that every voice is heard and every person is empowered to contribute to disaster risk reduction and receives the assistance that they need if the time comes. Third, we must acknowledge that climate change and disasters are catalysts for human displacement. This necessitates forward-thinking policies that create safe pathways for migration and to support those displaced by disasters so that they can rebuild their lives with dignity and security. On our side, we remain steadfast in empowering our local authorities and working closely with our youth to implement nature-based and ecosystem-centered solutions that not only address their unique challenges, but also honor their local traditions and practices. Fourth, innovation must be at the heart of all our strategies. Advancements in technology, data analytics, early warning systems can revolutionize our disaster preparedness and our response. Fifth, coordination and collaboration are the cornerstones of our whole-of-nation approach. By engaging all of our stakeholders, we ensure that we collectively identify the needs, address the gaps, and anticipate the risks ahead of us. And six, fostering open dialogue is essential in bringing our sectors together, promoting both convergence and coherence in our efforts. As such, we carry out regular assessments, regular critiques, ensuring that our policies on disaster risk reduction remain consistent and effective. And seventh, we place great value on the engagement of our private sector, particularly in advancing investments and practices in environmental, social, and governance areas. Through collaborative research, information sharing, and innovative financing, we continue to strengthen and deepen our partnerships with these key stakeholders. And finally, we must advocate for stronger international legal frameworks that guide disaster prevention and response. The Philippines is proud to lead the initiative towards developing an international legal instrument for the protection of persons in the event of disasters. This endeavor aims to fill critical gaps in international disaster response laws, uphold the rights and dignity of affected persons, establish clearer obligations, and enhance humanitarian coordination. As we chart our course to a more inclusive and resilient Asia-Pacific, let us draw inspiration from the stories of resilience that are embedded in our region. From communities that rebuilt after Typhoon Haiyan, to cities that fortified their infrastructure after earthquakes, to grassroots organizations that equip citizens with life-saving skills, we are surrounded by many good examples of what is attainable when we act with foresight, determination, and purpose. And finally, this conference presents us with a grand opportunity to send a powerful message to the world. The Asia-Pacific is not only prepared to overcome the trials of tomorrow, we are also ready to lead in disaster risk reduction and climate action. As you take part in this important conference, I encourage everyone to experience the beauty and the culture of our country. You will soon discover that the strength of our nation lies not only in the efficiency of our policies, but also in the indomitable spirit of our communities and the innate warmth of our people. I wish you a fruitful and inspiring confidence. Thank you all very much. Good morning. Mabuhay tayo.
Thank you, Mr. President. That concludes our program. Thank you, Mr. President, for gracing the opening ceremony of the Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Republic of the Philippines, His Excellency Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.